This is Nina Lockwood. Welcome to Get Your Happy Back. Stories and insights that will inspire you to find new sources of happiness in your own life. Hi there. Welcome to Get Your Happy Back. And today it's going to be a great one. I'm with Sabrina Mosseau. Hello, Sabrina.
Hello, Nina.
And I'm just going to give you a brief description of Sabrina and who she is. And at the end of the podcast, we'll dive into her bio a little bit more. But what I will tell you now is that Sabrina, for the past 25 years or so, has been a leader in the field of healthcare. She is a visionary. She is a culture cultivator. She's been a mentor to female leaders, and some of her personal qualities that I totally adore are that she's bold, she's a risk taker, she's honest, and she is funny and deeply caring. So, yay, I'm so glad you're here.
And thank you. Thank you for that kind introduction. And you know, Nina, that often in these type of environments, what we want to or we seek to find is kind of like that mutual attraction to people, right? Where do we get that piece of happy and surrounding ourselves with incredible human beings such as yourself? So thank you for that bold, bright, and amazing introduction. But it goes both ways as well, my friend.
Well, you know what they say, it takes one to know one.
Sorry.
So because this podcast is really about happiness and getting it back when we've lost it, I would love to know what your definition of happiness is.
It was such a great question, right? Because it goes right to the uniqueness, right? Every human being is unique. So therefore their definition of happy, right, is going to be very unique. And I would say my definition of happy is, where do I find those times where my head and my heart and my soul connect? What's interesting about that, and I think that's that journey I've gone on the past couple of months, is that I would have never thought that sometimes happy, or taken the time to realize that happy can also be tactile, right? So,
Oh, so
I have two little pugs, right? I have two little pugs, two cats, right? We're the animal house in more ways than one, just like the movie sometimes it appears. But this ability to finally structure on, the people who are actually the most happy to see me, yes, my dogs are people, is I get up in the morning and I come downstairs and they're instantly awake, right? Those two little pug faces are up, paws on the gate. They're so happy to see you. They're overjoyed. Perhaps treats are coming. Definitely outside is coming. But the reality of that is that for so long I took that for granted. Get up, step over the gate, go to your coffee, let the dogs out, and realize the fact of, like, if I just took that first moment in the morning, right, and I touched their furry little faces and their silky ears, that this moment of not only being focused on them, but being able to like tactilely feel like these two little things that actually love you in their loving way, what it gives back to you. I had never thought that the touch piece was that important to me. And so a new kind of discovery for me, that I'm tactile based too, with touching things like popping bubble wrap. I find that therapeutic. How did I not know that that tactile sensation made me happy? So there we have it.
it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because there is a recent field of research called neuroaesthetics, and it studies the effect of aesthetics on the brain. And it doesn't just mean looking at art or listening to music. It involves all of our senses and how our senses provide us with so much stimulation that we often take for granted. But if you think, we don't think about it all, but getting a massage, or eating something fresh and delicious, or seeing the colors of a sunset, all of those things affect us in a way that, well, most of us really don't even think about it, but to start to pay attention to that intentionally, that just feeds whatever intrinsic happiness that we have.
I think perhaps is that the struggle, right? I take this for granted, right? I take it for granted if I am in a crowded place with my husband, right? That he's going to make sure that he holds my hand, or that he has his eye on me, right? And that is decades of, love and caring and partnership. And where's that feeling of being like, oh, we care for each other, right? We're keeping an eye out for each other, right? In a crowded environment, instead of being like, well, that's just the way it should be, right? Like that's the way we should have deep and meaningful relationships. And I think you hit upon that word of like, where's the intention about things that are joyful in our day-to-day basis
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
we just, for whatever reason, right? Chaos, the world, kids, work, that's taking this ability away from us to say, wait a second, right? I have the ability to refocus and pay attention to that
Right.
and not just take it for granted, actually, because it's occurring every day, pretty much multiple times throughout a day.
That's right. So that leads me to another question, which is it's kind of a chicken and egg question, but is happiness an intrinsic inside job or is it external? Is it dependent on the extrinsic?
Interesting. And again, I would say it's probably going to be people specific. So I'm a history buff. And I'm amazed at resilience in individuals placed into horrifying situations, right? I'm amazed that people could come out of those situations and they could say, I found joy in this piece, or I found happiness in this piece. And it's almost akin to me like giggling at a funeral, like the worst thing. I mean, that's the worst thing you could possibly think of doing. But I was at a funeral a few years ago, and I remember still saying this to my friend. Her father had passed away, and the priest was giving the eulogy and blessing the sacrament and sneezed all over it. And I just was like, I'm not going up there for that cake. Like, I was like, I'm not doing that. Right? And we're in a church, like a sacred environment. I'm laughing. We're right behind her. And when we're telling her story afterwards, she's like, it took everything I could to just not burst out laughing myself. So the intrinsicness of like your environment, do I believe you can create happiness within your environment, the effect it has on you? Yeah, like environments can harm us, right? They can help us. I'm a much better person on a sunshiny filled day than I am on a rainy filled day. But then I have to go back and say, when my son was growing up, we used to do rain runs. What was that? It was that thunder shower, like the pouring rain that comes out of nowhere. And you look at each other and be like, throw your sneakers on, we're going for a run. And you'd be soaked. So it's intrinsically like it's an icky, dreary, ucky day. And all of a sudden, I would say that's the environment. But intrinsically, we were like, we're going to control this environment, right? We're going to go out and do something fun, right? And it's one of his memories of like, who does that? Just like looks outside and just like, put your sneakers on, we're going for a run. You don't put on, like, you just go the way that you are. So interesting question. Sometimes we also have to give ourselves grace, right? It's a beautiful sunshine filled day, right? Everybody's birds and butterflies and unicorn. And guess what? I'm not happy. I'm not happy. And that's okay, right? Because that's my personal happiness. And I may not be quite sure if I can even control that and make myself happy that day. And that's where I think we become not authentic and genuine human beings, right? When we pretend to happiness. I think fake it till you make it work sometimes. But I think at times that harms our psyche over long term, that we're faking that we're happy because we're too afraid to tell people maybe we're not.
That's a really
Right?
good point. I've found that having this discussion with more than a couple people is that happiness is like, I don't want to use this out of in the wrong context, but it's like ground zero, not 9/11, but in terms of who we are in our essence. And it gets covered over by stuff that happens during the day, family, work, everything that's happening in the world at the moment, but it's still there. It's like receptor cells. And when the right thing, we find it's not like we have to find it outside ourselves, but more like it's already within us. And we're just looking for the opening in which we can express it. So, yes, sunny days, popsicles, ice cream, blue sky, all of that contributes to gives us that opening, it seems like. And we forget that because, as you say, like if you're in a toxic environment in your office, what do? Do you just go with the toxicity of it, or do you do something to shift your own state so that you can claim that it's not happiness like, balloons and laughing and giggling and silly, but I don't know, I think it's something deeper. It's like a knowing that it's possible. We've got it here. It's just a matter of bringing it forward.
Some people live in a toxic environment, right? We've talked about that. I grew up in a horrifying environment. So I'm always like, we found happiness in that environment, despite, right? The extrinsic environment of living with this violent, abusive man was awful, but there's all these rays of like fun and hope. And interesting though, the majority of people though, however, are probably working in a toxic work environment, right? They probably are. And so, we could have a whole other, hours longs about leadership and servant leaders and people who, act as martyrs, right? And put that on their teams. But I would go to how do you or how have I, found tools to live in, rise above, and despite that environment, right? Where is this coming from, right?
Right.
Because you're never going to control any of the individuals. And so where I have found, and I've always said this to other leaders in my mentorship, is these things can make you unhappy, right? And they can make you sad, and you get to have those emotions. You get to be angry, you get to be mad, you get to be sad. You have to go back to when you walk out of that door at work, right? We bring life to work, work to life, right? They're not two different things. There's no such thing as balance. It's a joke. So I think sometimes when we get to that, we're happier to be like, I give up this sometimes for this. But I have always said to people, can you walk out during a day and can you actually truly realize who you are?
Mm-hmm.
And if you know who you are you happy with that? And then the push that I'm doing for myself right now is, am I in love with that person, right? Because I've always been in love with other people, spouses, children, family, friends, work, right? They're like, where's me in that? And I think that that's a reckoning right now with happiness, particularly in females in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
We lead differently, right? Many times we lead with a lot of empathy at times, right? We're much more curious at times. And I go back to when you're in those toxic work environments that want to shut that down, right? They want to shut down that laughter, right? They want to shut down the joy. They might want to be like, we're in a very serious place right now.
Right.
Yeah, we're in a serious place.
Work to do.
Yeah, nobody's dead on the conference room table, everybody. So like take a step back, right? If they are, I mean, we got work to do, right? But this ability to sit back and to say, who am I? Am I looking for that joy? So if I'm in that environment, is the joy that I get to walk out of that environment and take a walk in the middle of the day, right? Is that joy that I get to go help someone else? We forget that most of us are helpers, and many people are looking for the "Are you okay?" check-in, right? Noticed you were struggling check-in. And I don't know about you, but I also find happiness. And again, it's probably the rescuer, helper, oldest of five environment, right? All the stuff, right? Of knowing that you helped someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's something as simple as like, do you need to take a walk? We don't have to talk. You just got to take a walk. I wish we were more cognizant of that in corporate environments. And we know it, right? The science is there. Happy people do great things, right? Happy people are innovative. They're creative. They're driving forces. They're motivators. They don't always have to be the boss, right? And in fact, the bosses sometimes are the most unhappy people, right? How do we keep people happy? And again, we can't do a one size fits all mentality, but if we're emotionally intelligent enough to see that in someone else, and to give them that space and the place to pursue their happiness or their joy, or at least recognize it for what it is, for the love of Pete above, I think we'd have much better workplaces.
Totally agree with that. I think that's so, so, so important. So when you say, do you know who you are? How do you fill in the blank to that? I am or I do.
It's been, I think for most of us, it's a journey at any time, right? So for a period of time in my professional career, I identify as like, I am a nurse. Right? Well, what kind of nurse? I work in the ER, I work in the ICU, I work in oncology. Like, I'll work anywhere you want me to do, right? I love people sort of mentality. And then realizing like, where's my true joy and my true passion, right? It wasn't just being a nurse, right? That was a title and a credential, right? And I graduated from school and I did great in that. It was effective. Where could I find the joy in saying being a nurse means? And I think that though that's a maturity journey of well, I'm a boss. Like, yeah, I got to be a manager. Or I get to be like this, executive director of this multi-million dollar place. And instead of saying, wait a second, what does that bring me joy in doing? Oh gosh, it brings me joy in being able to connect with people whose opinions are not necessarily mine. I'm learning. Hey, it gives me joy and happiness to connect with individuals that are going to challenge me, right? And make me a better person. Okay, another happiness check mark. So we think who we are evolves over time. And for me, it's evolving now, right? I had a very set, and you kind of said it in the beginning, who am I intrinsically? Strategic visionary, culture creator, change agent, right? There's like who I am. But the question I'm struggling with right now is not even like who do I want to be and who I want to grow up with, is what components of me do I actually love the most that are not dependent on someone else's viewpoint of me.
Say more about that.
So I've always qualified like the love piece, the love piece and how someone else would see me, right? So obviously, my son sees me in a different way. My husband sees me in a different way. Family, friends, like everybody sees me in a different way. And so I've always tended to be like, oh, like, my husband, for example, right? My husband is always like, I love you so much. And here's all the traits that are amazing about you, right? You are a connector, right? You will give, your last dime to someone else. You can always be counted on. You're the gatekeeper and the secret keeper, right? Anyone can come to you about anything and you will be there for them. And that's wonderful. And he's not wrong, but I see that. And so then do I always want to be that person? And the reason why I say that specifically is lack of healthy boundaries. So
Mm.
I have had a lack of healthy boundaries, right? When I say healthy boundaries, it doesn't mean not to be that person, not to be caring of other people and committed to other people and dropping everything to help other people. But what has happened over the years is you start to drop anything that's about you, and
Mm.
you're not you anymore. And it's funny you said something about a massage earlier. I still feel guilt that I would go and have a massage, but a massage would make me happy. But why would I feel guilty about going to have a massage?
Right. You're not being productive.
Maybe because, right, and maybe because somebody wanted me to do something, right? And so it's, I don't have such a great answer yet, but I'm curious, right? I'm curious to say, what do I love about myself? Number one that I love about myself, I care about other people. Check mark. I love that about myself. That's why I like other people who are like that. Cool. Okay, that's awesome, right? What else do I love about myself? I love about myself that regardless of what people may think, that I'm going to be honest, but with kindness. I do not have to be honest and mean. I think people confuse that honest and direct with, you must be mean. Honesty with kindness. I'm glad I'm able to do that. I really, really, really am. And I also I saw this the other day. I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but that's because I'm champagne, baby. Right. So like again, isn't it funny? Like, my running joke is I don't need more friends. And that's a joke that in a way is like, well, is that true or not true? Do you just not want more friends because you're still trying to figure out like who you are? And again, I go back to how do I fall in love with myself so I can continue being very, very focused on what makes me happy.
Hmm. I think it's really interesting that you phrase it in terms of what do you love about yourself? Because I think, and mostly I'm addressing this mostly with women, although I don't know how many men could answer this very well either. But to be able to say, I love myself because I do this, or I have this quality, or that I love this. I love hearing the birds in the morning. And I love that I love that. It's not, I think the distinction is it's not ego that we're talking about here. We're talking about some intrinsic qualities that when we're able to express them, we feel really good. It feels free. It feels like grounded. This is who I am. This love of people, this love of animals, this love of, well, you name it. But I think that to be able to say, I love myself because of this is not easy for a lot of women.
Oh, no. And again, I always wonder, like, does it go back to what was defined for us as our definition of happiness and love? right? What was defined for us as our definition of happiness, love? What was a role, that we played, right? And I go back to my role that I played or that I was placed in is oldest of five, be a protector, be a protector, be a protector, be a protector, right? And so what that means is that if you're constantly in fight and float and fight and protection mode, there's nothing left for you anymore, right? And
Yeah.
so then what field do I choose? Nursing. Like there's a psychological surprise for anybody out there. Like, come on, the ER, like come on, what part of your childhood were you trying to like continue to like bring forward? But I find that very, very interesting. And then more interesting is that when we begin to emerge, right, and say that's not who I am. Like I'm gonna be quite honest. I am so glad that at this point in time, my son still has no intent of getting married or having children. And I love other people's babies. I don't know if I ever want to be a grandmother.
You
That's,
may not have a choice in that, though.
that's true too, right? I mean, like honoring my ancestors, but I am like, that's not something that is gonna bring me maybe well like this incredible joy. Like I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not saying I want this to happen, right? And pressuring him and everything. I'm just like, oh, if it happens, it's awesome. Of course I'll fall in love with that baby. But there's not, I grew up thinking like that was one of the things, right? Women
You're
perpetuate their families.
supposed to
And the
have.
role is, right? You take care of that grandchild. That's your role, right? And meanwhile, now I'm doing this like there's great grandfathers out there, but we have a different expectation. And so again, weird expectations. And again, I'm
Hmm.
going to stand up here for men too. If you have an expectation, you acted a certain way, and then you're being pushed to act a different way. That's a lot of neuron undoing, right? And rewiring
Yeah.
the way we are.
I want to go back a little bit because I think that's a really good point that you made that the role that you grew up with out of necessity, which maybe could have been seen as a weakness or a form of self-defense in your case, and I would guess in many other people's cases, if they are self-aware, is that turns into your strength because then it doesn't come from the need to defend yourself anymore so much as you see in other people. You have the compassion, you have the wisdom and the insight to see where other people are suffering. So what was your burden now could be a blessing.
I had this incredible an employee. So, in my prior role, I have to say, because I was so honest about my upbringing, I had no less, and I was there for a little over 5 years. So I think about 20 women reaching out to me confidentially, employees in bad environments, right? And having the courage to ask for help, right? Having the courage to say, hey, can you help me navigate something? And knowing I would have never said a word, which I didn't to anyone unless they made that, right? That public. And you're right, right? There's this ability sometimes to then be a better person to read a room. I'm really good about reading a room. I'm really good about emotions that are sitting in a room, right? The cues of people, the way they're sitting, the way they're looking at each other, or not looking at each other, right? And I'm very sensitive to that cueing, sometimes oversensitive, right? And sometimes I think what happens when you're oversensitive like that is that you have to clarify the cue, right? So if somebody's in a meeting, right, and they have their screen up in front of them, then, instead of assuming that they're not engaged, is there something that's going on? And so I had a leader who they take notes, right? Like that's because they're like, I don't remember all this and I want to be an engaged person sitting at the table. So, because I'd ask them individually, like, hey, I'm kind of confused. Why are you doing this? Right. They told me, and I was like, oh, I'm so hypersensitive. And I took that as you're not interested, which the reverse was true. Very interested. But that woman realized she needed that in order for her to stay accountable and engaged. Right. And I would say the other piece too, which is interesting, is it backfires sometimes. And why would I say that? I would say that because and I believe this truly in my heart now, it's a reckoning over the past 6 months, is that if you continue to draw from the well of the worst time in your life and or the happiest time in your life, let's put them both out there. So in my case, if I continue to say nothing is ever as bad as that, I am not giving myself any space or any grace to sit in the fact that what is happening right now is bad, right? Because I'm just flying through it, right? I'm not giving it the space and time that it needs.
Hmm.
Dare say the well of happiness might be the same way, right? If we're going back to the most happy time and we're continuing to draw upon that forward, but we're not taking this capability and ability in us to experience happiness in the moments it is, I don't think that's lasting. I really don't. So, again, how do we move away from that was the happiest time of my life, or that was the worst time of my life, and taking every other thing that comes along and trying to put it up against that
Right.
standard, lowest or highest standard, whatever it is. Don't know if it gives us ability to live our true, authentic life selves, who we are.
I totally agree with that because we're comparing something in the past to something in the present, and that's never a good idea. And secondly, because of where memory and imagination are in the brain, which is very close together, every time you tell a story about something that happened in the past, you change it slightly, right? All we ever have is this moment right now. And what are we going to do with it?
We do. We do. It is our, again, it becomes this like, I would say, very innate sense of responsibility to ourselves, right? So again, as women, and again, many men as well, like the responsibilities are always everything else, right?
Mhm.
The spouse, the significant other, the family member, the children, the work, the job, the employees, make sure I pay my taxes on time, right? Did I blow leaves onto my neighbor's driveway? Are they gonna get mad at me? Right? All of those other things. It's actually like, wow, like I'm taking responsibility for everyone else's emotions all the time, right? I'm taking responsibility for how they're gonna feel, right? About my actions.
Good
I'm taking
luck.
on, and then I'm like, wait, what about my own personal responsibility to me? Like, where am I? What happened?
Yeah, so true. So one of the questions that I get a lot when I'm talking to women that are going through that stage in their life where, what do I do now? Right? What's next? Is there what else is there? What do you think is the role of happiness in answering that question?
Hmm, lovely. So I can only speak for myself, right? Is that happiness for me for a long period of time in work was really built around jumping to everyone else's expectations. Right. And again, I'm good at it. Right. I'm always going to exceed expectations. But what I kept on forgetting is that I'm exceeding expectations because it's intrinsically who I am. So why am I not sitting back and giving honor to that part of me to fall in love with me? Like I'm a little competitive, right? In a good way. Right. I'm not competitive to step on you. I want us like building a pyramid and getting up and over that wall, right? Together. I think the other piece about happiness and transitions is going back to you get to allow yourself to be sad, right? You get to allow yourself to be vulnerable. They're two different sides of the coin. I get to sit with a dear friend and I get to cry in front of her and tell her, like, I don't feel great right now, right? I feel lost and I feel unmoored and I don't know what's going on. And did I make a bad decision, right? Did I do the wrong thing? And then leaving one career to embark upon a new adventure. And then all of a sudden, right, I sat in that time with that dear friend and I see myself reflected in her eyes.
Mm.
Right. And I walked out of there not sad at all. I walked out of there just like joyously uplifted that someone saw me for who I was, right? Called it out, wanted to connect with me. And I actually walked out, not the situation's the same, but I walked out sitting there and going, oh my gosh, here's something else that makes me happy that I don't do enough of. I have really good human beings in my life. Really good, like really genuinely good human beings. Again, I think it's for them, but it's not. It's for me. Like I need to connect with those type of people more often because I'm happy when I'm with them. The topic could be icky, but I'm happy when I'm with them.
You're connected.
Piece of like where. where is that? And this connection is not going to happen on the phone. It's not going to happen in a Zoom call, right? I dare say we wouldn't have this connection and I wouldn't feel as effusive and heart related to you unless I had had all these opportunities over really 15 years now,
Oof.
to, I know. We're little tiny babies. We're like 5 and 7, right? But to have this opportunity to just talk to and be present with another authentic human being. And
Yeah.
for me personally, that is oh, wow, that's actually really what brings me true happiness. Authentic connections with authentic human beings. There it is.
Yeah, I love it. So we are probably close to concluding this conversation, although I'm sure there will be more. Let me go back and cover your bio since people ought to be curious by now. You have most recently served as the executive director at New York Oncology Hematology, which is the largest cancer and blood disorder healthcare provider in New York's capital region. You have more than 25 years of experience as a healthcare executive. And I took these words in the beginning, but I'll say them again. You led as a strategic visionary, culture cultivator, and a driving force behind instilling and embodying the ethos of doing what's right for the patient. And I'll say these other things as well, because why not? Your strategic acumen, empathy, and visionary leadership have driven multiple healthcare organizations to excellence. Your commitment to mentoring and facilitating the growth of female leaders provides you with joy and a renewed determination to provide equity in corporate leadership. So important. You are also published nationally in the arena of patient navigation, and you're recognized as a prior recipient of the Capital Region Chamber Women of Excellence Award, to Life Extra Mile Award, YWCA Resourceful Woman Award, and the Siena College Professor Egon Plager Award. You are also a member of the Upstate New York and Vermont Leukemia and Lymphoma Board of Directors and the Siena College Athletics Advisory Council. Phew. You recently had the honor to serve on the board of directors for the Capital Region Chamber and was the chair for the Albany Colony Chamber. You're a graduate of Siena College. Your spare time, you're an okay golfer, and you enjoy traveling with your husband, Paul, who's a retired Army veteran, your son, James, your 2 cats, and your 2 pugs.
The 2 pugs I touch every morning with love and happiness now.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
of course. So
Yes.
if someone wants to reach out to you, where would they find you?
Perfect. So it's great, right? Because I am also in the career hunting mode, folks. So I decided that sticking stickers on fruit may not be the most resourceful use of my time or my career, but it is a job. So if people have it open, like call me. Number one, LinkedIn. Right. So I have a really active profile in LinkedIn, Sabrina Mosseau, and I would also encourage individuals to reach out to me via my email. So I'm a Siena grad through and through. So of course I'm a Siena Brie. So SIENA BRI @gmail.com. So really excited. And Nina, I can't possibly thank you enough, right? These small steps of impact. We could talk about research into happiness. I'm a researcher by trade too, but there is something to be said, and I'll leave it with this, that we don't have to be fancy about happy. I really don't think we have to be fancy. I think we just get too bogged down with fancy. So 2 things I've done in my life over the past 7 months, and both of them are because of amazing women. So when I wake up every morning, Hope DeRocha really embedded in me what I am grateful for, what
Oh,
I'm
she's
for,
great.
and I'm blessed with, right? And I've done that for probably about a year now, and it makes a difference. It's my own mini meditation. And then a dear friend, Benita Zahn, makes it very simple. Joy snacks. What's the joy snack? The joy snack is the sun was shining today. The joy snack is I met somebody this morning and I had breakfast with someone I used to work with. I'm so proud of her. My heart could explode with joy, right? But she made me also walk out feeling happy. So that little joy snacks doesn't have to be big stuff, people. It
Right.
doesn't. So
Right.
thank you, Nina.
Well, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Always love talking with you, and we'll do more.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone who is either listening or watching. And stay tuned. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.